Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambremont Webre, and I'm extraordinarily privileged, as are we all, to be here today with Chris Burres, who's the founder and CEO of our sponsor here at ExopoliticsTV, C60EVO.com, and Patty Greer, who's part of the company, who's the public outreach, I believe, and you can correct me. And this has all happened, really sort of as a miracle, because we in the sort of truth media domain, as many people know, were very hard hit when big tech pulled back and said, we don't like what truth media is doing, and we're going to stop sponsoring you. And fortunately, companies like C60EVO.com have come in, and they have a product which won a Nobel Prize, I believe in 1985, could have been. I actually met with the person who was responsible for Buck. I actually met with Buckminster Fuller.
Oh, the name of the raw ingredient, yeah.
Yeah, the Buc-ee's, and we have a special deal, and I'm mentioning this up front because this is keeping us on the air, and that is that you'll get a special discount on this product, and we get 15% of what you buy if you use the code ALWSPEC, ALWSPEC, and we'll be repeating that. But this keeps everything running, starting with the truth and starting with a product which is amazing, because C60EVO has, according to the research, double the lifespan of mammals. It's a super antioxidant. It slows aging. It strengthens the immune system, focus, sleep, and libido. And I use it every day, specifically because of my eyes. And I've taken on huge intergalactic responsibilities. People will be finding out about that. And it's improved my writing. Guess what, folks? I have 3 books coming out at the beginning of 2020. Doesn't that blow your mind?
Wow.
Now, having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris. And although it says Patricia LaRoche there, it's Patty Greer. And I'm going to turn it over with the question, how is it that buckyballs, which in the C60s is carbon-based, this new carbon-based, if we're moving toward a crystal format, how is it that these carbon-based are expanding our abilities so much? I know that's kind of a far-out question, but I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah, I like that. Well, you started off saying we're privileged to be here, and we absolutely are. Certainly feel privileged to be here on air with you, Alfred, and happy to be sponsoring your work. We enjoy what you're doing and feel that it's important. When we think about how C60, and I think it's really important to make kind of stop right here and make kind of this distinguishing feature. Because there's people who will comfortably, unfortunately, sell C60 that isn't right for human consumption. And so C60, I really think in terms of industrial applications. It's been proven that if it's not processed properly, it actually can be harmful to humans and animals. Well, animals and then therefore humans. We like to think of ESS60 as being the evolution of C60, and it is what you do basically take a high quality C60, process it for safer human consumption, and now what we do is we put it in really high quality oils and then sell that and make it available to the public. I want to talk about kind of expanding the way into the future. I've done a number of podcasts, and one of the podcasts, kind of towards the end of the podcast, host asked me, you know, what do I think the future of longevity is? And my answer was, look, in reality, if you're looking for the single best result in a longevity study, you will never find a better, well, you currently will not find a better result than the one that supports our raw material, right? So this ESS60. And for those of your audience who haven't heard, basically they gave rats water, they gave rats olive oil, and then they gave rats olive oil with ESS60 in it. Which is the C60 Evo formulation, or the one that we promote. So ESS60 with olive oil, those rats actually lived 90% longer than the control group, than those rats given water. And they also died without tumors. So tumor growth in these rats is usually linear, meaning the longer the rat lives, the more tumors there are. These rats, actually, a typical Worcester rat will die at 32 months. These rats lived to 62 months and did not have tumors. So you want to talk about future. I really do believe that that the product C60 Evo is a future of longevity. I just finished an interesting book. Actually, I was listening to it, so forgive me, I don't remember the title. Maybe I can get it to you for the show notes. But the premise of the book was, there's going to be a line at some point, right? We have some reasonable confidence that our understanding of being able and ability to manipulate genes is probably going to lead to people who never die. And the premise of the book was, here's what, you know, work very hard to live as long as possible so you're not that last person who dies. Because how much would it suck to be the last human to die? Obviously, if you get hit by a train or fall off a cliff or whatever, but we're talking about to just die of old age. And so I really do believe that this is one of the components of that, you know, if you're maybe on that journey. And I don't know if I addressed your question, but I pushed it down kind of towards the future.
Right. Patty, could you tell us how it was that you found C60 and how it has affected your journey since you came to know it and be with it?
I was dealing with a really difficult health issue, and I put out to the local community in Colorado, can anybody help me with certain kinds of scientific machines to see if something was going on energetically at my house, electrically, that wasn't healthy. So somebody responded, and he came up to the house and he tested, you know, everything, and then he saw that I was hardly able to walk, limping, and he gave me a bottle of C60. And somebody had given me a free bottle the year before, and it was so-so. And so I said, yeah, thanks, no. I tried it, it's not for me. And he said, no, give it a go. So what am I gonna do? I'm in my cabin, I hurt like heck. And I took a spoon out, did a spoonful of C60. And about a half hour later, I got up, walked across the cabin, and I was like, wait a minute. Now, how could I feel that different in half an hour? It affected me that quickly. And there's certain people that don't feel anything. I got a letter from somebody today that said 5 days, I feel nothing. And I said, please give it at least a little longer, up your dose if you're 230 pounds. And, you know, if you really don't feel anything, you'll be one of the very few, but we'll respect that and, you know, take care of you financially. I think that a lot of people are not focused on their body enough, conscious of their feelings, to even realize that they feel better. So I've had a lot, my mother, God bless her, 90 years old, 5 weeks, she's like, I don't feel anything. And all of a sudden she writes me a letter, all capital letters. It's not like I'm dancing with the stars, but oh my God, this stuff is great. It took her 5 weeks. Now, she's very bright, doesn't have memory lapse, but she's so out there rather than in here that I think for a lot of people, that's why they think they don't notice anything. My son-in-law gave him some, and he's this amazing rock guitar player. He said, oh, put it in my coffee, feel a little more buzz during the day. And then all of a sudden he started looking at his fingers and he said, oh, wait a minute. this thing isn't bothering me. Now here's a pro guitar player that plays 5 days a week at a recording studio, not even noticing that he's no longer in pain. So when we hear people say, I don't feel anything, I get it, you know, but perhaps you might want to take a breath, stop being out there in the world and come home and realize maybe that you're standing taller, your feet don't hurt, you're sleeping better, whatever it is. But for me, it hit me in the face. It was instant. And in the course of the last few years, I've tried a variety of different versions of different companies' C60 products. And what I didn't know was that all of them that I was trying were coming from Chris and his partner Robert in Texas, who have been mass producing, probably shouldn't say mass, but producing anybody else in the world, I'm guessing, for 28 years. Since 1991, these two guys, in college they met and invented this Star Wars machine to make C60 because Robert's college teacher said, it's worth $6,000 a gram. You guys should, you know, because they're a couple of really smart guys. They're into science, they're into business, and they did it. And they created this insane machine. I saw it with my own eyes. And all I remember was just my jaw dropped. It was so Star Wars to me because I'm not a scientist, but to realize the heat and the amount of energy that's being worked here, and that I'm sure a lot of people have tried to recreate a machine that can make C60 in mass quantities. I'd like Chris to answer, do you have any competition in the world, honestly? People say China, you know, big mass production. Do they have a machine as good as yours? I want to know. Are there other places?
Yeah, well, so that's a great question. You know, first, I want to just, I like this because I know a little bit about you, Patty. You started this saying that you were kind of unable to walk. How many stairs are in front of your home now?
I have 50 till I'm in my beautiful house. So I have 50 steps to walk up, and it's steep.
Yep. And you chose that house, right? Like it's a beautiful home and you chose it and you were able to choose it because of this product. I think that's pretty amazing. So to answer the question about, are there other mass producers? Back in the middle of 2018, I like to kind of say we made a mistake. We actually started selling so much of our oil that we had to take all of our C60, really ESS60 after you process it, and put it into our oil. So we had to make this decision about were we going to sell the raw ingredient or were we going to sell the oil? And so from a company perspective, it just makes more sense to sell the oil. And we wanted to also solve the problem of not being able to sell the powder. So we actually went around the world. We visited manufacturers around the world, including in China. And we ultimately found that that their product didn't meet the standard that we were looking for. And what I'm going to say is, as I sat down, or as Robert and I sat down with each of these people who are manufacturers, and we kind of talked about what kind of yields they get, talked about what kind of production capabilities an individual reactor would have. What we came to realize is way back in 1991, the piece of equipment that Robert and I made was the best fullerene manufacturing piece of equipment on the planet and still is today. Now, I can tell you, we're investing in new technologies. The current way to make C60 and ultimately turn that into ESS60 is to take 2 graphite rods and then vaporize those graphite rods in our environment. That's not a very scalable process. There's 2 other ways, common ways. One is a combustion process, and we actually have a partner in Boston who we're working with on a large manufacturing, large-scale manufacturing of fullerenes from a combustion process. And then also there's a plasma arc process, and we're working with a company in Canada to really bring those to fruition. Because again, the current best technique, the technique that Robert and I built the equipment for, is this carbon arc process. We're looking for like how are we going to drive ESS60 into the future, and it's going to be with a larger with a process that is significantly more scalable. So we're excited about what the future holds. I'm with you, Patty. We get customers, we'll take calls. And I like to take 2 or 3 calls a week myself. And sometimes they're like, hey, I'm just not feeling anything. And I'm like, really, how's your sleep? And then their eyes will get real bright and they're like, oh yeah, I've been posting on Facebook, I'm waking up at 5:30 in the morning. You know, it's when you start asking questions and starting getting people to think about where they are and where their health was and is now, is that when you really kind of, you're able to elicit the results. We also have the opposite, like you, 30 minutes. And I've got athletes who the next day where they were training twice as hard. I've got people are sleeping really well, really quickly. But, you know, it kind of runs the gamut. And I think it depends on, of course, it depends on your own metabolism and how you interact with the product.
Right, right. Have you run across, just to kind of bring it out to the big picture, have you run across any comment or indication or notion that the discovery of C60 is connected with the next step of evolution of the human race?
So I've actually had interesting conversations with people that kind of the opposite is true, if you will say. So one of the conversations that I've had with one of the guys who's taken our product was he went back to like biblical times, when you've got biblical characters who have lived, you know, hundreds of years, right? If you do the math according to the Bible, they've lived hundreds of years. And trying to kind of assess like, well, why did they live 100 years or hundreds of years then and now we're not? And so a theory is that maybe there was more C60 available around the planet, kind of naturally. It's a naturally occurring mineral. Maybe it's lying around the planet that was much more accessible at the time. And so people just tended to live longer. And then, I don't know, something, although C60 is not water soluble, so this doesn't hold water, pun intended, is if there was a flood or something that took away access to that C60, then that could explain this decrease in lifespans moving forward. So I haven't heard of anybody talking about the next generation, other than, like I kind of mentioned earlier, maybe it's ESS60 that can get you across that finish line and have you still, you know, alive and kicking when they really get genetic science into a place where we can potentially never die. But again, going back, maybe it was available in the past and something happened so that it hasn't been available until now, really, when we're making it available in mass quantities.
Well, I've heard all sorts of stories as to the origin of how C60 got to the planet. That is the fullerite molecule, you know, and one story that I heard is that it's almost like a panspermia model, and that it's from supernovas or the explosion of celestial bodies. Does that ring a bell at all?
Well, I'm not familiar with that specifically. What I can say is that the whole reason this discovery happened is that there was an astronomer who was trying to identify a particular visual spectrum that was coming from space. And his theory was that it was carbon. And ultimately, that pursuit of understanding that spectrum is what created this this discovery. By the way, just to clear up in the beginning, the Nobel Prize was awarded for the discovery of the whole gamut of molecules called fullerenes. And that was discovered in '85, and they won the Nobel Prize in 1996. Subsequent to that, and it was actually in the last probably 6 months, there was a big press release about how they've identified massive amounts of fullerenes actually out in space. And so I haven't heard the particular thing you're talking about, but it certainly coincides with the understanding that there are massive amounts of carbon-60 in space.
Right. So what is exactly, you describe a process that you've developed through the production of C60. Is that the fullerene that you're producing?
Yeah, that's basically you take 2 graphite rods and you vaporize it. Actually, localized temperatures are of the sun. So that piece of equipment that Patty saw and was describing, most of what's kind of, I don't know, fantastic about it is that it's got a lot of tubing and you got to manage the heat. In fact, there's a looking glass so we can watch the process of this carbon arc burn. And if you don't have a welder's mask protecting you, you'll actually get a sunburn. So we are talking about local temperatures of the sun. What comes out of that process is what's called fullerenic soot. Depending on the diameter of the rods that you have, you can get yields. So most of what you get is amorphous carbon. We call it carbon crap because it doesn't serve any value. It just gets in the way. We got to filter it out. But the yields based on the diameter of the graphite rods can vary anywhere from 1% on up to 15, 17% tops. And that 15, let's just call it 10%, that 10% of material, 90% of it is junk. You got to throw it away. 10% of that material is actually fullerenes, and we call it extract because you have to dissolve it in solvents and extract it. And of that extract, about 80% of that is actually carbon 60.
Right. Now, so that once the carbon 60 gets into our systems, you know, like say in my case, I take 50 milliliters each day, first thing, boom.
Are you taking 50 or 5? 1 teaspoon is 5 mils.
Oh, no, this is no.
Yep.
I take an eyedropper, and it has little rings, and it's 0.50 milliliters. 0.50 milliliters. So it's just at the bottom of the.
Yeah. So 0.5 milliliters. Yes.
Yeah. So it's just a little bit. Boom. I put it under my tongue. It's just what I need. You know.
Yep.
Now, so that's going into my system.
Yes.
Now, could you describe the journey of these C60 molecules and what they do inside our system to produce this result of sort of acceleration into hyperspace that we experience?
Yeah, I like that, acceleration into hyperspace. So what it's specifically doing, that's what researchers are currently working on. People much smarter than me are trying to identify exactly what it's doing. We know we have some experience that it's present in the mitochondrial functions, so the ATP processes that are involved in that mitochondria. In terms of you consume it, it is oil-based. So typically oil-based things are absorbed once the food is past your stomach. And then that's when it kind of can get into your system. We also know if you just take the powder, there's nothing wrong with taking the powder. The powder though is not water soluble and it's not readily absorbed. So you can actually take the powder and you'll just excrete it out when it's ready to go. It's when you really dissolve it in an oil, you make that carbon 60 molecule. And really, if you're going to consume it, you want it to be the ESS60 molecule. You want to get to the monomolecular level so that each individual atom of ESS60 is actually separated and attached to one of the lipids in the oils. And then what that does is make it significantly more bioavailable for you. You're taking, by the way, about 1/10 of what our average customer takes. So our average customer takes about a teaspoon, and that's about 5 milliliters. So if you're comfortable where you're at and you're getting results, great. It'd be interesting to see how much different your results are if you started taking like a full teaspoon. The only complaint we ever get is that, a full teaspoon of oil can be hard on some people's stomach. It's probably about 0.5% or less. But that's kind of the only issue that we get. And so what's interesting is even in one drop, there's about 400 times more molecules of ESS60 in just one drop of the oil than you have cells in your body, right? So it's literally a kind of atomic scale molecule. All molecules are, but this is only 60 carbon atoms. It's 7 angstroms across. It's a really tiny molecule. And even though not much goes into the oil, you actually end up with a huge amount compared to the number of cells in your body. It's pretty amazing.
So, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
About bioavailability, because we sell 3 flavors: olive, avocado, and MCT coconut. And so people think you're getting the same thing in every bottle because the price is the same. But once you did some recent testing, I saw that you learned that coconut oil holds basically 1/3 of what olive oil holds. So now you've got a real question. Well, all right, what does that mean, bioavailability? You just explained it. It won't go into the system. But what I'm curious about is, now we know, and just yesterday I saw you posted somewhere that avocado oil has 0.6 instead of 0.8, which I thought was true. So I want to understand these 3 different oils, suspension. What's going on here that no matter how long you mix it, you're still not going to get coconut oil to hold anywhere near as much C60 as you ever do.
Yeah, there's a saturation point. There's a specific amount of ESS60 that will dissolve in each of the individual oils. And really, you can order different olive oils, and we've done that, and you can get different amounts. Usually it's about the same, but there's a little bit of variation in the amount of ESS60 that you can get to go into even different manufactured versions of an olive oil. What's important to note from our perspective, our recommended product is olive oil. And most importantly, it doesn't even matter, like literally if the research was done on MCT oil, which had a smaller amount of ESS60 in it, I would be recommending MCT oil, because our scientist pedigree kind of requires us to go down the path of what's best research, right? The reality is the research is done on olive oil, ESS60 and olive oil. And so that's the product that we recommend. Now, we have customers who are interested in, hey, I'd prefer MCT. Some people, olive oil a good quality olive oil can actually have a big bite, not a big bite, but a little bit of a peppery aftertaste in the back of your throat. Some people don't like that. So we make MCT available, we make avocado available. But yeah, MCT, and this is, I have kind of a bone to pick with some of the competitors out there who have constantly sold MCT and I don't think have been really forthcoming. It may be on their labeling, but if you hear them on podcasts or broadcasts, are they really saying, hey, here's MCT, don't forget it's almost 1/3 of the quantity of olive oil? I think it's a really important point to make. So we are out sharing it. Some people, like I mentioned, I put MCT in my oatmeal this morning and then had my dose of olive oil. So they're not, it's not one or the other. You actually can take multiple of these products. Also avocado oil, it does have less. You need to take about 60% more product of the avocado to get to the same concentration, to get to the same number of milligrams of ESS60 as you would get in 1 5 ml dose of olive oil. So I think that's really important. I think there's people out there who have products, maybe, they can say, oh yeah, I'm telling all my clients because it's on the label, but most clients are just assuming, hey, it's the same price. It's got ESS60 if you're buying the right stuff, or it's got C60 in it. If you're less concerned, and they're just assuming it has the same amount. And in fact, it doesn't.
Right. So would it be fair to, just kind of following up, would it be fair to say that when I take, or when all of us take the ESS60, part of what's occurring in each cell is that our DNA is being enhanced? Is that what's happening? I'm kind of like grasping.
I like this. So again, I'm going to throw this into, there are competitors out there who are saying that it extends telomeres, and I've actually had conversations and they're with them specifically, and they're saying these things without any research to support it, right? So does it make sense that these particular Wistar rats live 90% longer? And if the length of the telomere is an indication of actual age, would it make sense that this product extended telomeres? Yeah, that makes sense. But as a scientist, that doesn't mean that's what's happening. That's the theory that you've got to go test. And I'm not, like I'm a research scientist. I'm not in the business of projecting my theories as facts, because I don't. That's just not good science. You can say, hey, I have a theory. I even have a theory. We have, you asked about what are the exact mechanisms, and we don't know. What we do know is that the product is a great anti-inflammatory and a great antioxidant, 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. The current theories about aging say that it's an oxidation issue and it's an inflammation issue. So it does not surprising that a product that extended the life of rats by 90% actually is an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. Those are things that we know for sure. My theory, one of our best testimonials is better sleep. My theory is that better sleep, we know good sleep improves your physical, mental, and emotional well-being. So this product giving you good sleep is going to help you in almost every aspect of your existence, as long as you're getting good sleep. So that's my current theory about why we're getting good reports. Now, there's also other things, like we get people, by the way, I'm talking a little close to the line here, so I need to be very clear. The FDA hasn't evaluated our product. It's not intended to treat, diagnose, or cure or prevent any disease. Some of our clients are talking about arthritis and the improvement that it's helping with their arthritis. That's probably related to the anti-inflammation capabilities or properties of the product.
Right. So what are some of, I'm sure that clients and people who are using it have called in or have written in. What are some of the typical or, cases or comments that you have, just so people can hear,
Yeah.
I can share why I started and what it has done to me, but I'm sure that people would like to hear some of the more interesting things that you hear.
Yeah. So again, the most consistent testimonial is better sleep, right? And that's people who are going to sleep earlier than they used to. People are waking up earlier than they used to. I can add to that, and so this has a little interesting twist to it. I can add to it if you drink, that usually is very detrimental to your sleep and causes hangovers, right? Is a big part of hangovers. You wake up and you're exhausted if you've ever imbibed too much. We're getting reports that the product has helped people with hangovers. And again, that I believe that goes back to this better sleep. If you're sleeping better, you may have a little bit of a headache when you wake up, but at least you've got a full good night's sleep. I'm actually, I don't know if you can see this ring on my finger is an Oura ring, and it's supposed to be one of the best sleep trackers on the market. I'm already talking with one of their researchers, and we're going to get some of the product into the hands of these people who already have an Oura ring and already have data. So we've already got data prior to taking the C60 EVO formulation, and then we'll have data after they've taken it to see it. I'm convinced that we're going to see a noticeable difference. The researcher that I'm speaking with shared some data with me where he had on one side when he had a couple of drinks and on the other side when he didn't. And you could see a difference in the resting heart rate, how long it took to settle down on the nights that he had drinks. I'm taking the product and I've had some drinks for Christmas parties and I don't have that slow decline. I start off flat right away. So it's almost like my body's skipping whatever's happening and potentially it's metabolizing alcohol. My body isn't having to do that. And so I'm sleeping through the night and, waking up times when I might be a little hungover and I'm not hungover. So again, it all kind of goes back to sleep. We do know that it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and I've got a testimonial from a lady who said that her son used to go to the hospital 4 or 5 times a year for mental health reasons. So some challenges that her son was having, and in all of 2019, her son hasn't gone to the hospital, and that's, you know, when he's been on the product. So it's pretty amazing, some of these results. I've got more, but I'd actually like to hear, you're taking a little small amount. What's your kind of experience?
Yeah, you know, I really don't. I have not been keeping any records, so I don't have any objective data
Yep.
to share.
Yep.
And as part of my background, I do have a certificate from the Harvard School of Public Health, so
Yeah. Wow.
I have some kind of knowledge in that area. And I did spend a couple of years as an administrator of a federally qualified community health center in Texas, overseeing 25 physicians, 120 nurses.
Wow.
And we had 90,000 patient encounters a year. So I do understand the whole area of healthcare administration. You know, I'm knowledgeable in that
Space. Yeah.
in that area. And so what occurred to me, and I know that this is going to get in some very strange areas, but that's the areas of my research, and that's the area of directed energy weapons.
Mm-hmm.
And we have done research on directed energy weapons that have been used against civilian populations in violation of the Geneva Conventions, because that would be state actors, you know, governments that are using it against, that are using military weapons against civilians, kind of keeping, whoops, sorry.
Sorry about that.
That are keeping dissidents in line, or truth journalists in line, by shooting them with directed energy weapons. So in July of 2016, I was attacked with a sophisticated directed energy weapon, and the direct energy, the direct vision in my right eye was taken out. Wow. By a sophisticated directed energy weapon, because the information that I had revealed that the current president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, had been pre-identified by the CIA DARPA time travel, secret time travel program in 1971, and that he had been groomed by the CIA to be a future US president since 1971.
Wow.
So all of these stories about, you know, they went to him and all this kind of stuff is baloney. He's of the same ilk as Bush 1, Bush 2, Bill Clinton, and Obama were all pre-identified in 1971 and groomed by a secret CIA presidential pre-identification program, as was Trump. And so we were making all of that information public, and I had ascertained that in June of 2016, and I was attacked on the 30th of July 2016 because I had that information.
I remember watching you on air, and I remember you could hardly see for quite a while.
Yeah.
And I'm just a witness of your horrific experience, but I remember watching you. And I also remember when you started taking C60, and the teaching you was phenomenal. And people were writing comments, Alfred, what's going on with you? I mean, it was visibly such a shift when you started taking C60 after you had almost lost the vision in your eye.
Yeah. I mean, when I was hit with that directed energy weapon, I actually took a 12-week course with the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. I was issued a white cane.
Oh, wow.
The whole bit. I mean, I went into the world of the blind, and I learned, I learned a lot. I mean, it's quite a compassionate view. I mean, I understand how blind people live now, and I have great compassion for them. But the C60 brought me back into the world of, uh, people with vision, and but not only that. Uh, the eye is just kind of the tip of the iceberg, because it's the eye-brain connection through which you see. Most of what you see is in your brain. Your seeing is in your brain. The eye is really just kind of the lensing, the lensing mechanism, and your seeing is connected with your brain, with your cognition, with your memory. It's all of a piece. So that 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 weapon, which is diabolical, it's diabolical, and it's now being used against many progressive thinkers throughout the world. I saw that recently in Chile. The military down there is they have kind of the youth down there, or the progressive people, are protesting against fascistic measures, and now it's become standard to go after the vision of the peaceful protesters. You follow
Wow.
me? And it's not only the vision, it's they're going after the brain function. So we were one of the early canaries in the coal mine that they went after. So the C60 has been vital, not only for the vision, but for rebuilding my whole memory and brain and cognitive apparatus, and allowing my soul to reoccupy my body, as its avatar in this holographic incarnation, and come back in. Just to really state it in its full dynamic. And now, and now I'm really undertaking more and more responsibilities of a galactic nature, as far as being able to, because of my background in international law and galactic law, I'm now, as a war crimes judge, acting more and more in with the Galactic Federation, and in that sense. And we'll be starting meetings of the New Earth community in 2020 on the third Saturday of every month for English speaking, and the third Sunday of every month for Spanish speaking. So I'm undertaking all of these things, and it's really C60 that is providing the ability, to carry out these complex tasks and to heal my body that had been subjected to this advanced weaponry. So that's my story, and I encourage everybody out there who is either a targeted individual. We interview a lot of targeted individuals. Those numbers are in the millions, people who are being targeted by electromagnetic weapons, by chemtrails, by smart dust, by all of these things, to look at C60 as a way of rebuilding your body. And you can get it here. And when you buy it through here, you get a discount automatically if you use the code ALWSPEC. That's ALWSPEC. Just go to C60EVO.com. Yeah, so it just works out, because you get a discount and it keeps Exopolitics TV on the air doing our job, you know, of bringing light on these areas to people. So that's my story.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Thank you for your dedication, and watching you with your comeback was, I think, one of the most impressive comebacks I've watched, but not everybody goes on the air and shows their face all the time. I too have gone through some pretty serious stuff. And when I tell the truth, I think the reason I'm still alive today is C60. I think I've been tested beyond anything I would have expected at my age. And I want to point out the three of us are hardworking people. We are 3 different decades. Chris, I think, just turned 50, and look at his skin. This is C60. I'm in my 60s, you're in your 70s, and we're still pretty darn bright, on point, and present. For me, I think C60 does something. When Chris talks about the blood-brain barrier, I want to know more about why my brain has been more solid on C60, why my patience has been really increased, where I can kind of sit back more and be relaxed when there's a war going on in front of me or on the phone. I just kind of hold it out there and have a real calmness that I think C60 has a lot to do with. And so I'd like you to talk about, you said the child that went to the hospital 5 times a year because of mental conditions, all of a sudden his brain calmed down and he wasn't going through it. So what is causing the mental relaxation?
Well, so I'd love to offer some really complex, it's crossed the blood-brain barrier and it's interacting with the neurons. We don't know specifically. I can tell you, here's another, this is one testimonial I really enjoy. It's a little bit longer. I've shared it from time to time. I hope it's not a repeat. There was a guy in our office who was actually making his 3rd purchase. And I assumed, well, this is going to be a great guy to have a testimonial. So I went up and I asked him, you know, what are you experiencing? And just like you kind of shared, Patty, he was like, well, Chris, I haven't really experienced anything. And my first thought was, well, that's okay. Again, if your concept is I just want to live longer, there's no better researched result on any supplement available than this one, right? So Evo, you know, C60 Evo is what you want to go for. But then there was this odd pause, and he shared with me, he goes, well, has it helped? And he gestured at his knuckles. Does it help with arthritis? And I was like, well, you know, the FDA hasn't evaluated it for arthritis, but our customers are saying that it's helping them with their arthritis. And he goes, well, then it's helped me with my arthritis. And I used to have this click, click, click in my knee. I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. And then he goes, and I started jogging again. I haven't jogged for like 8 years or something. And now I'm about to go on my 10th jog. So I've actually picked up jogging again. And I was like, well, it's a shame nothing is experienced with this, with our product. And then he goes, but the last thing I want to share is I feel less stress. And he goes, and I got to make this very clear. It's the same job. It's the same people. It's the same stress, but I feel less stress. So I think that goes to kind of what you're sharing. You know, what I would attribute it to right now, just trying to have some sort of answer, because maybe it's a lot more complex and it's crossed the blood-brain barrier and it is interacting with the neurons in a certain way and helping certain things. But sleep, if you sleep better, then you feel better. It helps your physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And so it could be, I mean, I say it could be that simple, but the current sleep aid market is a $2 billion industry, and they don't help you sleep. They knock you out, right? And you wake up and you don't have the chemical desire, the chemical pressure to desire sleep has been relaxed, but you haven't gotten the sleep that you need. You haven't gotten the REM sleep. You haven't got the NREM sleep. And actually, I'm pulling this information from a really good book called Why We Sleep. Our product is unique. Like, who has heard of anything that you take in the morning, our clients report better mental focus, more energy, and then you sleep better that night? It's the opposite of take something right before you go to sleep to knock you out. It's doing something more fundamental, and we don't know what that is, to allow you to sleep better at night, or those customers are reporting that for us. So yeah, I think that's what I would attribute it to.
The statement C60 is 172 times 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. How do we know that? And what does that literally mean?
So there's one study, and it's a reasonably obscure study, and it's a number that's kind of resonated. What's really important to understand when you're talking about antioxidant capability of anything, right? So, by the way, we're not the most powerful antioxidant on the planet. Moringa is supposed to be like moringa is a plant. It's supposed to be like 1,400 times better antioxidant than vitamin C. So it's not, you got to understand that those tests are done in a petri dish. You don't stick it in the body and know that the body has these ROSs, the reactive oxygen species, and count them before and then count them after and figure it out. You know, bioavailability is not taken into consideration at all when you're doing these types of calculations. So it may be the fact that it's only 172 times more powerful when you do the test in a petri dish, but once it gets in the body, it's actually able to go places that vitamin C isn't, and actually to contribute as a reactive oxygen species sponge in ways that vitamin C isn't able to participate in.
Thank you. I wanted to mention the size of your store. I think you've got the biggest store on the internet with C60 EVO. You've got 3 flavors. You've got a bigger size than anybody carries, which is for the serious chuggers.
Yes.
I got myself a 32-ounce bottle. And, but I was really hooked on the avocado. Yeah, there's your sizes. I was hooked on the avocado until I started hearing you talk about the olive oil, which I've never loved, being that much more potent. For me, I'm only taking it because of the potency. I want to heal everything in me. I want to feel great. And I don't know if I want to live forever unless I can feel great. And I'm a work in progress. I'm definitely a work in progress. And I have found some of the strangest things in the last couple months, maybe 5 months. I had a surprising thing happen this summer. So I've been detoxing very heavily, along with my C60. I've got a lineup on my counter of things I have to take every morning, every night. And so I've been really pushing my body. And I just keep saying, thank God for C60. But all of a sudden, I started seeing skin tags come out of my skin right before I had this big, beautiful event in my fancy dress for.
Of course.
Yeah. So now I have skin tags growing out of my décolletage. Like, what the hell is that coming out of my skin? And I'm detoxing like, even there. And these things fell off. They came out and fell off. Now, I puzzled the dermatologist because I went after the wedding and I said, I made an appointment with you to burn off these 3 things. Well, 2 of them are gone. And she looked at the other one, she was kind of surprised. You know, it's like, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm pushing my body pretty good. But I'm also seeing things come out of my face. I feel like I've lost a layer of skin because I'm detoxing so much. And I think that C60, I called it my Roto-Rooter for years. Now I've heard you say, oh, it's the oil, not the C60. I'm not a scientist, but I beg to differ. I don't think oil could possibly have the effect on, I don't know how many miles of intestines I have at 5'2", but I'm a whole different person. And I don't think it's just the oil. And all the first year and a half, I was doing coconut. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't mean to call it names, but I wish I had been told this has a third of the C60 in it. So if companies are mixing the same amount of C60 in their mixers in all 3 oils, what's going to happen if the coconut oil will only hold a third of it? Where does the rest of the C60 go?
Oh, well, yeah, you're talking about a production process. In the production process, you tend to actually overload a batch. So let's say you're doing a batch of, 100 liters. So you want to load that at 0.8 milligrams per liter or 0.8 grams per liter. That's what a typical olive oil will hold. You actually want to overload it. You probably put about double in, so about 1.6 grams per liter, and you know that what you're going to end up with is either a residue at the bottom of the container, or as you're running it through the filter, you're actually going to, because you always should filter it after you've been mixing it, And we've actually found in a small mixer, like an Erlenmeyer flask, that's how we used to produce it in the early days. Yeah, it's about a 2-week mixing process. But when you get into bigger and bigger vessels, there's dynamics that are going on in the vessels that don't allow the ESS60 to dissolve as quickly. And so we actually end up mixing for 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks. And that's what we do in order to get the top, the actually highest concentration. So if you were to take that same 1.6 grams and you were to put that on a per liter basis in with MCT, you're just going to have a lot more residual at the bottom of your barrel. Now, in our case, you can recycle that. Obviously, you want to recycle what was in MCT with MCT oil, what was in olive oil with olive oil. But it's just, you just can't get as much ESS60 into the oils, into MCT or into avocado as you can in olive oil. And so really that's why first our recommended reason for recommending olive oil is because that's where the research is. And then it just turns out that it happens to have significantly more of the ESS60 product in it than its other oils.
And your production process, because you're the 4th lab I've seen, you're the only one that had those big, huge kettles that turn. And I believe you mentioned that oxidation causes problems with companies that are doing it in their little spinners. And a lot of people at home are doing it with their, and I don't mean to minimize the little spinners. People can't afford C60 in general. A lot of people feel like, like, I'd rather spend, the same amount of money on 10 things that don't work rather than using my brain and perhaps trying this and sliding everything else off the counter.
Well, yeah, let me first speak to sliding everything off the counter. One of the testimonials that I got I think it was this week or late last week, was, I've been taking supplements for years. I've taken all sorts of supplements. I've never really felt anything from a supplement. And I've taken your supplement, right, which is the C60 Evo formulation, and I'm feeling stuff right away. I'm feeling more energy. And so there may be some value. I'm not going to recommend this because you may have come up with your own supplementation regime and it may be serving a very particular purpose. I will not be surprised if you try this and you give up on a lot of your other supplements. So yeah, if you do a cost analysis and that turns out to be true for you, it's probably a really big win in the ESS60 olive oil category versus, all of these other supplements. And in addition, it's an oil, it's easy to take. You don't have a whole slew of pills that you're taking. I'm also going to talk about, when you're mixing this, you're mixing it in either with like a small magnetic stirrer in an Erlenmeyer flask. That's the flask that's kind of shaped like a funnel. You always end up, if you've got the right speed of your mixing device, you've always got like a funnel inside of the oil. So the oil is kind of sucking new oil into the bottom piece. Well, what that can do is actually fold in air from that particular process. So early on, as soon as we started making this for cell, we actually included a nitrogen purge. Now, it's important to note a nitrogen purge should not just be like, hey, let me put some nitrogen in it, and then, unless you seal it, right? But we actually don't even trust that because usually, especially in larger vessels, there can be small air leaks. So we actually have a positive nitrogen gas pressure on our vessels, on the interior of vessels, that actually keeps oxygen away from the oils, and you just don't want to oxygenate the oils. That's what, when you do that is when they go rancid. And so you want to be very careful. And so, yeah, that's part of what you saw in our equipment.
Very impressive. Yeah. I've been reading up on other companies because I want the best C60 manufacturing process for my body. And so I read recently of a company raving about their C60 in water formulation. And they're, and then I've heard you say it's not water soluble, but they claim that they have the best, by far, no competition. Is that possible?
So you can get C60 because it's when you get it to a monomolecular level, which is actually very hard to do unless you're putting it in oils. You can get it to suspend in water, very, very minute amounts, like almost negligible amounts, but it will suspend. Again, it's not dissolving, but it will suspend. And it's not just that you have to get it to monomolecular, you actually just need to get particle sizes that will suspend in water. But to compare that to the amount of ESS60 that you can get into even an MCT oil, there's just no comparison. So if you're looking at that original research and you're saying, okay, the rats were given water, they were given olive oil, and they're given olive oil with ESS60 in it, those rats given the ESS60 and olive oil, they live 90% longer. So it's clear that the ESS60, by the way, another reason to choose olive oil is those rats that were given olive oil actually had a 30% increase in lifespan. Olive oil's, big part of the Mediterranean diet. That's the diet that a lot of people are referencing when they're talking about living longer. It's a really good oil, to the point that these rats live 30% longer. And then you add ESS60 to it, and now you're 90% longer. So I think to say, even if they're doing it right and actually getting some ESS60, well, in their case, unless they're buying it from us, it's C60, suspended in the water, you're still never going to be even close to the amount of the raw ingredient ESS60 that you can get into an oil.
Now, I heard you say that you have already begun the process of redoing that 2012 Paris BAATI, if anybody's interested, the Paris BAATI study.
Yes.
But you mentioned that they stopped giving them C60 at a certain point, and they only live 90% longer. What if they didn't stop giving the rats C60? Would those rats still be here, do you think?
Well, you can be sure when we reproduce those results, we will not stop. Yeah, those rats were given the water, the olive oil, and the olive oil with ESS60. They started at month 10, about a third of the way through a Worcester rat's life, and they stopped at month 17. And even though they stopped at month 17, those rats given ESS60 lived all the way out to 62 months, again with no tumors. So, when we reproduce those results, we're not going to stop at 17. We're very interested, just like your question, we're very interested in understanding how much longer could those rats have lived had they been given ongoing doses of ESS60.
I want to hear those results. And I just remembered something I wanted to mention, because we're talking about our interior being affected by C60. I started swishing. When I take my spoonful, when I think of it, I swish it in my mouth, and then I swallow it. So I get it in my gums, my teeth, just guessing that maybe it might affect it. Every once in a while, when I'm doing a little plucking of eyebrows, I got my 10 times mirror, I look at the back of my teeth. I have hardly any plaque. Now, I believe that swishing with C60 has removed the plaque from my teeth. But I will say that with all the recent testing I've had to do with what I went through this summer, I had a heart scan and I had a carotid scan. And my friend, the nurse, she said, I've never seen anybody with zero plaque. Hello, I have no plaque in my arteries to my heart and nothing in my carotid. That was the best news. And again, she's a nurse. She said, Patty, at your age, that's really rare. So what's going on with plaque deletion?
Well, again, you've got to go back. And actually, I'm reading a book right now by Dr. Gundry, which talks about something that he calls gut buddies. And when he's talking about gut buddies, he's talking about the good bacteria that are in your stomach and how impactful they are to your overall health. One of the things that he prescribes, so it's not a real prescription, is olive oil. So that's inherent in what you're taking with the ESS60. So that's also, I mean, that having your gut biome in the right frame of mind, if you will, because some people actually call your stomach a separate mind, a second mind. That can again also affect your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. And so it's probably a couple of things going on there. It's known antibiotic and known antiviral, and so swishing it around your mouth is going to be healthy for your mouth. So those are the things that I would say are having an impact there.
Nice. Another company is raving about sonication. I think they're in the UK. They brag about it on their website that they sonicate their C60 and believe it's the best on the market. I've heard you say sonication is not a great idea. Can you give us
Yeah, sonication is actually a horrible idea. There's a lot of good research on sonicating oils in general. You know, the ESS60 is not the first thing anybody's ever thought about adding into oils. And to sonicate it is just a way to really, you take sound waves, and those sound waves are in a, if you think about a jewelry cleaner, right? It's got the sand in it and you put your ring in it and it makes this really high pitched noise. Though that noise is the sound waves going back and forth across this product. So it causes small vibrations. Well, when those sound waves peak together, you can actually get localized temperatures that are extremely high. It's really small pinpoint locations, but extremely high temperatures. So you can actually get the oil turning rancid really, really quickly. So it's not, if you leave it to set and you've got the sonicator on, the overall temperature of all the oil will slowly come up because you got all these little tiny pinpricks of extremely high temperatures. But what people are failing to realize in this context is that those extremely high temperatures are actually causing rancidity of the oil in those local spots. Like, that's what happens when you take the oil to those temperatures. And so this is not a good thing. I wouldn't put sonicated oil in my body. So
I think we're being really misled on Facebook and social media because,
surprise.
you know, in every field, of course, but, you know, I really hope that we don't lose the C60 integrity because we've got people promoting things that, I loved your video about the guy that's, you know, C60's got 1,200,000 views, but there's no C60 in his product, you claimed after testing it.
Yeah.
So I would love to see somebody do an on-camera test of all of the products of the different companies that are out there promoting and selling, so that the public can get an idea really how much C60 is in that bottle from that company and how clean that oil is, or if it's rancid from sonication, oxidation, you know, any kind of, shall we say, basement or garage processing, which is pretty much what I had seen before I got to your lab. So I'm really grateful for what you've been doing for 28 years, and that's why I've chosen to promote your products. I think.
Yeah.
You want to talk about your animal products, because you've got a special flavor for dogs and a special flavor for cats, just so they ask for it every day.
Yeah. And just the same thing with the pets. I also do. I just incorporate it into whatever your routine is with the pets. We've got a cat version that has salmon flavoring. It's natural salmon flavoring, of course. And then the dog version has bacon flavoring. Don't worry, you're not going to cause cholesterol problems with your dog. It's just a small amount. But the dogs and cats seem to love it. I've got a video of a lady who's giving her dog, who's feeding her dog, big dogs, lab-sized dogs, and they're waiting until they get their ESS60 product on the actual food before they start chowing down. So they love the product. And so, yeah, you can get both the cat and the dog version. And then we've got some promotions where we've got, you can get a human bottle and a dog bottle, so like a dog promotion and a cat promotion. So you can get those two together with a little bit of discount. So yeah, those are available.
Dog lover set, cat lover set.
Yeah.
Lover set has both of them. And then you've got the people lover set, which is the 3 flavors in one box. And till the end of the year, I think everything comes gift wrapped in a box with beautiful colored tissue for the holidays. So your Christmas gifts are great and they're easy, and you guys ship every day and you're open 24 hours for ordering. So for me, Christmas shopping was really easy this year. My friends with dogs, my friends with cats, you're covered. My friends with any health issues, that'd be everybody I know, you're covered. So yeah, I think we're getting a lot of clues about how to move forward as a species. I think that what America's dealing with right now politically is a sign that we are in great change times. I don't want to talk about politics, but I do want to say that I think that the C60 evolution is part of the worldwide evolution of consciousness. I know that I've spoken with Isabel in your office, speaking of consciousness, and we both, for some reason, talked about our love for crystals and minerals. And I said, have you noticed any changes in you, since you've been taking C60 every day? She said, funny, I used to really love quartz, but now I love emeralds. Like she her taste in crystals. And I said, that's fascinating because I surrounded myself with quartz, but now my house is full of amethyst, big ones. So it's like, even on that level of that consciousness piece, she and I went, really, you too? And I think that the more we start communicating with others that are taking C60, we're going to realize that there's not only a physical healing, but a mental healing of calmness and a spiritual healing that's moving us toward a higher frequency. And I don't want to get woo-woo because that's not how I look at C60. For me, I'm grateful to be alive. And I don't think I would be if I wasn't taking C60 the last 2 years. I am incredibly grateful. And to learn that all those products that I was taking for different places came from you makes it easy for my shopping, because I don't want all those pieces where things can go wrong. I want to buy from source so that I know that everything that happens in that bottle happened in one place. Does everything happen in your place, even printing the labels and packaging the boxes?
Everything.
Everything. Well, to me, if you're doing it right, that's an easy guarantee. Now, speaking of guarantee, you use the word ESS60 guaranteed safe for human consumption. How can you guarantee it?
Well, so that goes, I mean, that has a little bit of a marketing flair to it. Let's be realistic. There are things, let's just talk about the food pyramid that was recently turned upside down. I think at some point, some of those physicians would guarantee. So yeah, the current literature says that this is safe, and the way we're making it is safe.
Amen. Well, I'm sure grateful. And now I have to let my avocado run out, and I'm going to put myself on the olive oil because I want the strongest possible C60. Alfred, what flavor do you take?
Well, I've got my my bottle here, so
What flavor?
I think it's well, it's my broadcaster bottle. So whatever it was that you said.
That's going to be the olive oil. Yeah.
Yeah, olive oil, I think. Yeah, and I've been wanting to ask this. So when is C60 going to make it into the mainstream, or is it ever going to make it into the mainstream?
Well, I'm working very hard to bring it into the mainstream. If you try and compare like C60 to where the CBD market is, CBD is all over the place, and really they have comparable research behind them. So and we're expanding the research on C60, really ESS60, if you're going to put it in your body every day. And so yeah, I'm working very hard to actually bring this to the general population. I'm going on podcasts. This is one of those efforts to let people know that there's this amazing thing, and it's got an amazing story behind it, and we've got customers who are getting amazing results.
Yeah. Now, is your procedure patented? I mean, would a corporate giant, who says, "Oh my God, look at this! It's the next frontier," what would happen there? And they send a corporate team out. Have you patented that?
Yeah, so the production process of C60 is not patented. I think it was patented a long time ago and has since expired, because that's the nature of those patents and the time frame that we're talking about, right? So discovery back in 1985. And then the patent for just mixing an oil, that's going to be pretty standard. We do have some patent, we're submitting some patents so that we can protect some of the novel things that we're doing. In reality, the big guys are probably going to stay away from this because there's no patented processes available. And so it's really going to be up to us, and we're the leader in the industry in terms of olive oil. We got some kind of customers and kind of some of our best customers are also our biggest competitors that are working to grow this market. But at the end of the day, it's going to be up to us. It's probably not going to be a large corporation that comes in and says this is something that they want to do, just because those, especially big pharma, if they can't patent protect it and stop everyone else from selling it, then they're not interested.
What happened a year ago? I'm sorry. When it was spread around that NASA bought out the C60 market, was that?
Yeah. True? Yeah, well, Alfred and I talked about that on last time, and you know what I shared was there's reasons that NASA would be interested in C60. In fact, we've been to NASA. My business partner and I have done projects at NASA. You could probably call us NASA scientists, although that's not really relevant to this industry. But yeah, if they were going to buy the biggest one, they would have approached us, and they did not.
So it wasn't true. It was a rumor.
It was not true.
And why would people spread a rumor like that? I guess just to sell C60.
I guess I had somebody earlier today who was asking why somebody on Facebook was saying a certain thing, and my comment to him was, I'm very proud that you think I'm smart enough to know that piece of information.
I've also seen people desperate to attack you that you're fake, that you don't have a lab, that you're buying your stuff in China. I mean, there are a few people that are I just figure, I don't know who C60 they're taking, but it's probably the black stuff with no C60.
Yeah, I don't, that was whom I was having a conversation about, and I can't presume to understand the motivations.
Well, I saw their attack today. They don't speak very good English either. So there you go.
You know, I would have the closest thing that I've have there been any comparisons between the healing properties of C60 and the healing properties of medical cannabis at all?
I'm not aware of any particular studies. What's interesting is that you can actually combine the two, right? So we can actually take a CBD oil and add it to our existing olive oil. And we've looked at that, and we may at some point come out on the market with something like that. But I'm not aware of any research that compares them. I am aware of quite a few people who were taking CBD, and when they tried our formulation, they stopped taking CBD and are just on our formulation. In fact, one of our employees, they get a nice little discount on a limited number of bottles, and he informed me that his mom is taking all of his bottles from him, and she was previously taking CBD.
Speaking of all those bottles, I saw that you can buy a case of 12 bottles and get 25% discount. That's huge. And if you sign up for a subscription, you get 20% off, which is huge. So people that are having financial issues or on Social Security limited income can keep in mind perhaps to start with a small bottle and do a subscription and see if you love it. It's less investment, and if people don't love it or they can't afford it, they can just cancel and still get the 20% off. So it's easy to try it, start it, test it, and see how it does on your body. For me, I'm interested in really hitting the olive oil now, because I was impressed with coconut. And if I was impressed at 0.35, imagine how I'm going to feel when I hit that big bottle and do that for the next year. I'm super excited. I mean, 0.8 compared to 0.35 is a very big difference.
Big difference, for sure.
Yeah, well, we're starting to come to the final stretch of this particular segment, and so if maybe Patty first, and then Chris, if you have particular thoughts that you'd like to leave our our audience with, maybe you want to think, share those now.
Well, we've been open 6 weeks, which isn't very long, and we've been received incredibly well. I looked at the stats this week. We've had 6,500 views or likes on Facebook in a week. So for a brand new company, we're blowing it up. And Chris and I have a really nice joint venture relationship because I do all these things that I love to do, and he and his group do the rest, which I don't want anything to do with. And that's why it's worked so well. It's been effortless. But for me, I am a C60 person. I take it loyally. I know that it's really made improvements in my health, my well-being, my thinking, my spiritual practice. Everything is different, and I'm super grateful to Chris and Robert for bringing this product and letting me help promote you guys, because what you're doing, I think, is going to be known down the road, not very far away, as one of the greatest healing secrets of our time, C60.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. And you mentioned, yeah, we've had a fabulous launch. It's just been phenomenal. And it's important to note, like, although it's a new company, it has the weight of my 28 years, the company that's actually mentioned in the original study. We've been manufacturing since 1991. It's always interesting to kind of add, our pedigree is as researchers and delivering research materials to research scientists. Currently it could be easier if I were to get lazy, because I'm selling to people who don't actually have equipment to test what I'm selling them, right? For 20 years, I've been selling directly institutions. Those institutions are writing papers with the product that I'm selling them. Those institutions have the equipment to test exactly what I'm selling. So there's no more exacting market to sell into. And we've been doing that, and we still do that. We still sell into that market for 28 years. So really, we're carrying that pedigree into this C60 Evolution, C60EVO.com. And it's really exciting. And I'm just happy, given all, like, I get to wake up every day. I'm as skeptical as anybody out there. I never intended to be a supplement person. This is not the path that I chose. It's just the path that's been given to me. But I get to wake up every day and do what I've done for 28 years. And now I get phone calls. We never got a phone call. Hey, Chris, thank you for helping me, selling me the material to write a paper. Right? We never got those phone calls. Now we've got customers who are calling and saying, thank you, my mother's feeling better. Thank you, my dog's more active than it's ever been. Thank you, I'm finally sleeping. Like, it's just, I couldn't be more lucky. So I'm just very happy and blessed to be in this position. And Alfred, I want to thank you for having us back on the podcast.
Oh, well, totally. I gave my testimonial earlier as to personally what C60 has meant, which is really why I've been able to do and survive and be here and be even more active every day. And so we're very grateful to C60EVO.com, which is our sponsor for Exopolitics TV. And I want to remind everyone that when you go to C60EVO.com to make your order to start or to continue sharing in this tremendous addition to your well-being, just use this code. It'll ask you for the code. It's ALW. That this is starts with my initials, ALWSPEC. You'll get a discount, and then very, very generously, the company will 15% of your purchase will be applied to our continued ability to be on the air. so thank you very much. And you know, people are really starting to take this very, very seriously. And we've had viewers who have come in and purchased cartons at the carton level, and who've taken advantage of this saving and also of the amount of revenue that it comes to us. So I want to thank you and thank Chris and thank Patty, and look forward to our journey together with C60, and look forward to the next opportunity when we come together to share all of this well-being. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Alfred.